you're getting close to actually starting your organization, and you are a little bit anxious, a little bit confused, but you are excited because you know that your organization is going to change the world. You can see the enormous change, the difference that your organization is going to make. But yet, again, you are a little bit confused. You don't know how to hold your first board meeting. And the greatest thing you need at this point is someone to actually just hold your hand and guide you as you go through your first board meeting, doing everything correctly and actually succeeding. Well, in this lesson, I'm going to show you just that. I'm going to hold your hand and basically work you through step by step and show you everything that you need to do to have a successful first board meeting. Let's begin the lesson. We're talking about an overview here of what we're going to do. We're going to first talk about organizational structures that you will need, and then we'll talk about before the meeting, the activities that you need to carry out before the meeting, and then we'll talk about during the meeting, what actually happens during that meeting, and we'll talk about after the meeting, things that you need to do after the meeting, because a successful board meeting is more than just what happens there. It is everything else that happens after the meeting. Let's look at some organizational structures here. We're going to look at 3 organizational structures. This first one, you're going to have a board of directors, and by this time you would have already selected some people that are going to be boards of directors, but these are structures that you're going to use. So you have a chair. Look right here on the officers. There will be a chair, a vice chair, a secretary, a treasurer, and there'll be committee members over committees, and then there are committees: fundraising, budget and finance, nominating committee, and then there's ad hoc committees that you start as needed. These are just examples of committees you might have. It's not that you have to have these. So this is one structure. Then the board of directors appoints, nominates, elects, selects, hires a CEO, whichever way you want to say it, CEO and present CEO. And then under this, the present CEO are vice presidents of different departments: finance, product development, marketing, fundraising, etc. This is one structure. Then let's look at another structure that you may use. So you could choose to have your board organized by this structure, or you could choose this second structure. In this second structure, what you see here is that you have the board of directors just like the first, but now instead of chair and vice chair, you have a president and vice president. Note that. That's the only difference. You still have a secretary, treasurer, committee chairs, and you still have the same committees. Because you have a president up here in the board, the chair of the board, the head of the board is the president, then you choose to have an executive director here, who is the head of the organization and runs the day-to-day activities. In the first structure here, the president or CEO was the one managing the day-to-day activities, running and controlling the whole place and getting everything that the board decides to be done day-to-day in the organization, day-to-day management. But in the second one, is the CEO that is doing that. Is the executive director, not the CEO. The first one is the CEO president, the president CEO. The second one is the executive director right here. And then you have assistant director for different things. Assistant director for finance, assistant director for product development, marketing, and all that. Now, structure number 3 that you could use, but which I do not recommend. I recommend you using structure 1 or structure 2, but not structure 3. It's worth putting here. Structure 3 rather starts like structure 1. It shows board of directors, chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, committee chairs, then committees just the same as structure 1, president or CEO just as in structure 1. But then it also goes now, instead of vice president of this, vice president of that, vice president of that, it has executive director for finance, executive director for product development, executive director. So this method is going to confuse people in the nonprofit arena because they usually understand that as in structure 2, which is very common, and structure 1 is also common, that when you see an executive director, they belong in this position where they are the head of the organization and run the day-to-day activities of the organization. But when you then see that in structure 3, the executive director, several of them are there, but they are not the overall boss of the day-to-day activities. It'll confuse people, which when somebody says they're the executive director, whether they are the overall boss or not in terms of the day-to-day activities. So this one is a little bit confusing. You could use it, but I don't recommend it. So we've looked at 3 organizational structures that you can use. Now let's go ahead and look now at this one that is a little bit more detailed. The ones I showed you were very summarized. They ended up here at the second level. After president or executive director, this one is showing president, okay, like in structure 1. It could continue. It could be president of communications, vice president then you could get vice president of communication, vice president of finance, vice president of membership, VP networking, and different things. Then under those you could have different people, okay, different people showing heads of different units. As you could see here, you could pause this video and take a look at it, but we're going to move forward now. So the second thing I said we're going to look at is the before meetings, the activity that happened before the meeting. Okay, so let's look at what is going to happen before the meeting and realize that at this point the founders are the key. They are coordinating, doing everything, and the founders are going to do 3 key things. They're going to do several key things here. They're going to recruit the first board of directors and orientate them and basically give them an orientation. Then they would also draft the articles of incorporation and the bylaws. They would file the articles of incorporation and the bylaw, and the last thing they will do is that they will set up the first meeting. Okay, so they will do these 5 things. They would recruit the first board members, they would provide orientation for them, they will draft the articles of incorporation and the bylaws, and they will file the articles of incorporation, and then they will set up the first board meeting. What does it take to set up the first board meeting? Let's take a look. Setting up the first board meeting basically is going to entail a lot of things. They'll have to have a clear purpose and objectives for that meeting. They'll have to check the bylaws to make sure that the people they're going to be inviting are going to form a quorum. They will need to send out invitations and get confirmation of attendance. They'll keep the meeting short, no more than 2 hours. And if you just want to make it too much, 3 hours at the max. Average 2 hours is good. Rather, 2 hours is good, no more than 3 hours. Okay, correct myself there. Then they would also need to prepare a very focused agenda, and they will need to draft resolutions that need to be passed and send out homework. For example, if there was something that needed to be read or prepared for, they'll need to send it out so people can actually prepare and get ready. Because board members in this first board meetings usually don't have a clue. There may be some of the orientation work that was done, some paperwork from the orientation may actually be sent out so they could review it and know what roles they're going to be playing and some of the activities that will happen. And of course, you will send the agenda to the members at least a week before they meet. 1 week to 2 weeks before they meet, you do that. Okay. Then you perform meeting logistics. That's choose where the meeting is going to be. Choose what kind of conference room that is going to be. Choose, is there going to be a PowerPoint presentation or whatever. Choose the different things that you need logistically to be able to get the meeting done well. Okay. Now, let's look at what you would actually do during the meeting. The first thing you're going to do is take attendance, which is do roll call. This is important. Why? Well, because you need to make sure that at the meeting you have enough people to form a quorum, okay? Then you need to appoint a temporary chair and secretary right after you basically do the welcome. For example, let's step back a little bit. Go back to step 1, okay? When you start the meeting, people are seated. The founders are going to choose one of them to speak. if there's only one founder, then there's only one founder, and that person will speak, welcome everybody, and introduce people that are in attendance. Okay, then after introducing people that are in attendance, now he or she is basically going to lead the group to appoint a temporary chair to continue the meeting. A temporary chair and secretary. You need a temporary chair to be able to coordinate the meeting until they select the officers, and a temporary secretary until they do that. Most often, it will just be automatically the founders who would be said, oh, just continue. The people will say, no, well, you just continue as a temporary chair, and then the same person could be the temporary chair and the temporary secretary who would be taking notes, or could be different people. Then after you do that, then the next thing would be now give a report on the filing of the articles of incorporation. Okay, remember we talked about in the last point that one of the things that has to happen is that you would have drafted the articles and the bylaws and then filed the articles of incorporation, which is actually how you get the organization started. So after you file the articles of incorporation, the organization is started, and that's why this meeting is called the first meeting. It's basically the first official meeting, the first meeting after the organization has started. But you're going to have many other meetings before. You're going to have meetings with people to be able to select the board members. And I discuss in a different portion of this course how to be able to select board members. Okay, but you would have several meetings, but there'll be unofficial meetings. Now the organization has started and you're having a meeting in the name of the organization, as for example, my organization, Shaping Destiny. This will be the first meeting that, legally speaking, Shaping Destiny has been incorporated, is recognized by the state, and is having. Before the articles of incorporation, the state doesn't know that there's an organization like that. So the meetings are unofficial. So you'll give a report on the filing of the articles of incorporation, and basically when you do that, then you continue to, you adopt bylaws. Okay, you're going to adopt your bylaws, and after adopting the bylaws, again, these are the bylaws that were adopted before, that were drafted before. You adopt them. Then now the key point comes: election of officers. We already showed you different structures that you can take. So we're going to go with structure one. So basically the temporary chair will call the meeting to order and basically say that, okay, that you want nomination. They want nominations for the position of chair of the board. Okay, now people will give a nomination. I nominate this person, then there will be a second. Okay, when somebody is seconded, then there would be other nominations taken. Okay, it could be 2-3 different people who want to be, or most often for small organizations, small nonprofits, the people will nominate that the founder be the chair, but it could be that the founder is not nominated and then somebody else is nominated. The more people are nominated, it's a good thing, not a bad thing, because as long as it's a good thing, as long as the people that are being nominated are motivated by a good heart, and they are also not only motivated by a good heart, but they are competent. They can really bring something and lead the organization to achieve its goals well. This is good. The Bible even says that, Paul talks about that if a person desires to be an elder, he desires a good thing. But an elder must be, and then he continues in the book of First Timothy, he continues to give the criteria for eldership. So you have to meet the criteria, you have to be competent. So again, the founder, who will likely be the temporary chair, coordinates, and the board elects by voting the first chair of the board. Now this is the official chair. Now the official chair immediately takes over from the founder or the person who was a temporary chair, and then continues and gets nominations for other positions like vice chair, secretary, treasurer, and then get those done. Those are voted for and those people are elected. Then the new chairperson now continues the rest of the agenda and takes the meeting to the end. Okay, so some of the things that you are going to want to do during this first meeting, which in some states are required, is that you're going to designate a principal office. When you file the articles of incorporation in Texas and in many other states, you would have already informally, you would have already had to fill in the principal office during the meeting now, because when you designated the principal office, you are acting not as the official organization. Now you actually designate it and write it down in the minutes as that the board has done it. Okay, you designate that. But before you even file the articles of incorporation, you have to have met with your board members to be, and then you'd have chosen the place. And the principal office basically means that the place where most of your staff are going to be working, where your executive offices are going to be, where your executive director or your president and most of the staff are going to be working. That's what principal office basically means. They usually want a physical address, not a post office. Okay, then the next thing you'll want to look at is authorize the opening of a bank account and designate signees on it. Basically, you do not, most banks will not allow you to be able to create a bank account until you show them minutes of a board meeting and you show them a resolution on there saying that the board authorizes so and so person or so and so persons to be able to open a bank for the corporation, for the nonprofit, with so and so banker, and then the banker will receive it. The banker is the bank, will receive it, and then they would create the bank account. Okay, they'll also need your articles of incorporation with these minutes, and of course the IDs of the people that are in the minutes stated as those who will be signing on the account. Those people need to be present. So you need to do this and have it in the minutes, because you're going to need to have a bank account. If you are a non-profit, at some point you're going to need money, and you need a place to be able to put your money. You don't want money being held privately for an organization like that. That's very, very irresponsible. So you could also do other things during this first meeting. For example, you could elect or appoint an executive director if you want. You can start discussing filing tax exempt status with the IRS. You can start discussing getting tax exemption with your state and things like that. There are many other things that you can discuss, but there's only so much you can do in 1-2 hour period. So when you've basically done the things we've covered, you are good to go. And that's your first board meeting. Congratulations that when you've gone through these steps, you would have done your first board meeting successfully. Now, we talked about organizational structures. We talked about what to do before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting. Basically, we said that after the meeting, you will basically prepare the minutes and send to the people that were at the meeting, and you would file the minutes from the first meeting. You will file those with the articles of incorporation and the bylaws, and that will become the board book. It could be a folder, or where it's kept at the corporate offices, and then that's a very important document. It has in there who is signing on the bank accounts and many different things that you've done during the first board meeting. That's very important. But all other board meetings will also be put inside of that board book. Okay, so these are the things we've talked about: what to do before the meeting, what to do during the meeting, what to do after the meeting. It looks like I didn't talk about what to do after the meeting until just now, but that's what I intended to talk about. If after the meeting, sending out minutes, filing everything in the board book and keeping it at the corporate office. Well, that's it. That's how you have a successful first board meeting. I know that it's going to be stressful. It's going to be a time where you are a little confused. You don't know what to do. And I believe that this video, if you follow what I have given and take this advice to heart and implement the steps I have shown you, that you will actually end up having a great first board meeting. And again, congratulations on your first board meeting and good luck leading a nonprofit and changing the world and impacting people.